Welcome to Éxito in Minutes. I'm here with
Alex Espinosa,
my co-host, and I'm Troy Blanchard. Thanks for joining us today. We're super excited. Éxito in Minutes is all focused about how in minutes we can learn the best practices, valuable tips to help you achieve your full potential. We're inviting experts to come in, and they're going to share inspirational stories. Our main purpose is when you're concluding listening to these podcasts that you will be a better person and take some of those best practices, learn not just from us, but from our guests. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Éxito in Minutes. We are so excited to be here today. I am Troy Blanchard. I'm here with
Alex Espinosa.
And the reason why we're so excited is we are here with
Daphne Blanchard. Hello.
She's back. So we have done 2 podcasts in a row.
Yep.
This is actually our 3rd or 4th with Daphne. And we're excited to hear a best practice that can apply to all of our lives today. What do you want to talk about today, Daphne?
Thanks for having me, first of all. This is awesome. As we're talking about tips for success, one that seems really basic and simple, but makes a huge difference in the workplace, in our personal lives, but really especially in the workplace, is being on time. And to me, being on time is really respecting other people's time and caring about others. So that's what I want to talk about today.
I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it. I think this can apply. It doesn't matter what culture. It doesn't matter if you're in Asia, Latino America, you're in Canada. It doesn't matter where you're at. Mm-hmm. I think it's just a beautiful rule. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm thinking about how bad it is to be late and how common it is. Let's say in Latin America to be late. It's like we assume that is a part of the things that we have to do. It's like, wow, now that you're thinking about time, it's like, woof. Is that a thing? Is that a habit that we create? Is like, how does it work?
Well, for me, I actually got in a bad habit of being late in a period of my life. So we had 4 kids under like 6 years old or something. It was chaos at our house. And, every time I tried to leave, there was like some, as we call them, diaper blowouts with the baby, or someone would lose their shoes or homework, or there'd be all these things that would happen. And I just got in this bad habit of and just accepting the fact that I was going to be late all the time. So I wanted to do a carpool, driving, like sharing the driving to go to school with a friend of mine. And I told her but just so you know, we're always late. And she looked at me really seriously, very kindly, but seriously, and said, that's not going to work for me. That's going to really stress out my kids. And it just hit me like, oh, I didn't realize what effect that would have on them. And I immediately made the change and told her, we will be on time. And what I learned in that moment was, and we'll talk more about this, was early is on time. I just had to change my perspective that was hurting other people or causing stress in my kids' lives or causing stress in their lives. And so therefore I needed to make the changes in my planning in the day to just expect for chaos to happen so that we could actually be on time.
I remember when Daph was like, we're always going to be on time from here forward. So it was hard for me to adjust. It was that 20 to 30 minutes early to going to church.
Especially because you're so focused on efficiency of time.
I love efficiency.
Yeah.
Like if we can do something down to the minute, make it work, I love doing that. But it was beautiful in the fact that she's like, we're going to start loading the car at, 5, let's say it's 11:30. 11:30, we're going to start loading the car. Okay, 11:30. Like we don't have to be there until 12 and it's a 5-minute drive. She's like, how long does it take to get all the kids in the car? 10 minutes. All right. Also, once you get them in the car, how long does it take when they forget things? Okay, it's 15 minutes. And then we're there 10 minutes early. And when she still started to bring in, and our kids were little, it used to be like an excuse. Oh, I've got 4 little kids. That's why I'm late. The truth is, when Daphne and I started showing up on time, let's say it's church. We started showing up early to church every single week. You can't use that excuse. All of a sudden, occasionally it's going to happen, but you're going to be late for whatever reason. But then pretty soon people are like, well, geez, they have 4 kids under the age of 7 and they're always early to everything, to school events, to school parties. It was a beautiful lesson that Daphne, through our neighbor, taught us.
Wow. So what I'm seeing right now is that most of the people used to create their own plans thinking about the perfect world. So in the perfect world, I'm going to be on time.
Yes.
There won't be traffic. There's nothing. So I'm fine. I'll be there 5 minutes early. So there's no way. You need to start planning, thinking that a lot of things will happen. So the worst scenario should be your plan to be on time, right?
Right. Exactly. In fact, I in my brain, I coined this phrase, early is on time, because I realized that on time is actually a very small sliver of time. It's like a 60-second window, right? And so if you're planning to be on time, you're not allowing for anything to happen in that time. So the only way for me to be on time is actually to try to be early, because then when everything happens, then I'm like, oh, thank goodness that, when I have to go back to the house, because don't we always go back to the house for something, then it's like, that's okay, because I've already built in time for it. So
one of the things too, I've got to touch on this topic a little bit. One of the things too is think about what does like Manila, Philippines have in common? What does Quebec have in common in Canada? What does Chicago, Detroit, New York City? What does Quito have in common? Because this is where we're at, or Tijuana. Everywhere you go, there's traffic. But what also is common is anytime anybody's late, they say, oh, the traffic. Mm-hmm. So the one of those concepts is you have to plan. It's already broken, right? And I love this. Daphne taught me something that I think is very, very valuable. I had a boss, and this boss was always specifically doing something that was really hard for me. And one day I came home and she's like, he's always going to do that. So once you accept it and change your perspective, then suddenly I'm not frustrated anymore. And it worked. I came home and I'm like, yeah, he did it, but I knew he was going to do it and I accepted it. It's the same with traffic. There's always going to be traffic. Doesn't matter where you're at. So just plan on traffic's going to be the worst you've seen it. Even if it's noon, you're going to try to get to, it's only going to take you 10 minutes to get there, but plan for 20 because something's going to go wrong. And you never have to say the phrase again. It was traffic, because all you're saying is it's poor planning and your time didn't really matter to me. So that's one example of traffic. What is another example, Daphne, of where we can apply this concept of being on time? We already talked personally when you had kids. Talk to me about professionally, not just arriving on time, but not just meetings, but where else in a business place? You as an owner, as a business owner and an entrepreneur, where else do you see that it's important that we follow our time?
Well, what you mentioned, that concept it's actually a Chinese proverb called "the glass is already broken." And so I wanted to mention that because that just runs through my head. The glass is already broken. And if you know the glass is already broken, then you expect it to be broken and then you plan for it. So that's been really helpful. And professionally, when you say you're going to be at a meeting with someone, I know that I have my days scheduled out pretty tight in those meetings, even down to like, this is when I'm going to eat, and this is when I'm going to, take a break, or this is when I'm going to send this report or do this research to prepare for this next meeting. And so by showing up on time to that meeting, you're really respecting the time of that person. And I don't think we realize it, but when you don't show up on time to that meeting, you have just thrown off all their schedule. You may have accidentally, inadvertently taken away their time to research, taken away their ability to have lunch, you've thrown off their whole schedule. And I think sometimes we don't think of it from the perspective of the other person. So like you say, professionally, it can be business meetings. It can be if you're meeting someone for lunch. It can be if you say you're going to send something to them. They're sitting there waiting for you to send that, and they can't move forward on their project until you do that in a timely manner. So those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah, I love that. We had what I would call a sad lunch. And let me explain to you why I think it's sad. I went to a lunch with a very dynamic gentleman that we know, and he is an amazing guy who helps integrate companies with in the United States. But I also want to make sure that we focus in on, could be Canada, could be the Philippines, could be Asia, could be London, could be anywhere. But these companies came here and tried to start companies. And when I mean, let's just say Latino America, specifically, we're currently in Ecuador. And what happened is we touched on this in the previous podcast a little bit, but they had spent a whole bunch of money. They set up this meeting. They have all the people present. And maybe it was, I know it was from the US, so probably all of the United States employees. Some owner had paid a whole bunch of people to be there. They started the Zoom, and right on time, and 80% of the people didn't show up until it was 6:20, they said. 20 minutes late. And when you're thinking about a meeting that's been prepared, presentation, 10 people to get ready to present to their Ecuadorian team, and then the Ecuadorian team all showed up late, it was super frustrating. And just like Daphne says, it throws something off. And to us, that's disheartening because the idea of éxito en minutes are what are the small things you can do to be more successful? I feel like the time has come to stop saying Ecuadorian time, right? And if you're in a different country, it could be Argentina time, or it could just be late. I'm always late. When people say I'm always late, it's a self-fulfilled prophecy, right? They choose to always be late. And so the thought process, if you want to have éxito en minutes, when there's 10 people in a company and the boss has to let go of 5 of the 10, I promise you he's going to let go of all 5 that are always late. They're late on turning in the reports. They're late on showing up to work. He's going to keep the 5 that are always early. They're 5 minutes early to every meeting. They're always 5 minutes early on all their reports, or they're a day early. And so éxito en minutes to me is let's change that culture. Daphne, you presented the idea of a bucket, and if your bucket's full, I think it's that same concept. If we fill the bucket and we're on time to 9 out of 10 meetings, and we're on time 9 out of 10 times to church, and we're on time 9 out of 10 times to turn in reports, when you don't show up on time that one time, people are like, oh, Alex is always on time. It's just because this happened. Of course, something's going to go wrong. But something goes wrong 1 time out of 10, not 9 times out of 10. And that'll give us more éxito in our, I say éxito, success. Right? It gives us more success.
But think about this. Why are we so serious about time? Time is something that you cannot buy. It's like, let me buy some time from you guys. No, you can't. You can't afford time. There's no way. Time is time. Time just goes by. So when you actually care about someone or you love someone, that's the reason why you dedicate time to that person or your company or your job. It's like you probably will notice this is when you love what you do, you spend a lot of time doing what you love because that's important. That's the same for your family, for your children, for your couple. It's the same thing. When you love something or you love someone, you spend time there. And it's the exact same thing for the opposite side. When you don't care about something or your job or your family, is like, no, I won't dedicate time to this. So I'll probably be late and I'll find an excuse. And no matter what, it's like, I don't care about time. So Daphne, what would be your advice for people to understand how important time is in all of the things that we have to do?
Well, it's interesting going back to Troy's example, when you can put yourself in the other person's shoes and all the work that they put into it, they're renting the place by the hour. They have their presentation set up to the minute. When you really think about that person and all the efforts or that team, all the efforts that they put in, I know that the people who showed up 20 minutes late were not thinking, I don't care about these people. I know that wasn't their thought, but that's how it felt to the other people. And so I think if we can put ourselves in their shoes, if we can really feel what it feels like on the other side, then that helps a lot. And some people might say, I like when people are late because it helps me. But, actually I have someone that I love and someone in my family, and she doesn't want to make me feel bad. So she'll say, I'll be there in 10 minutes, even if she knows the GPS says it's an hour away. But she doesn't want to make me feel bad. So she says that, right? But what I like better is if she tells me I'm going to be 40 minutes late. I'm so sorry. Then I say, great. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to eat lunch. I'm going to do this project. And so she thinks she's helping me by making me feel good, by telling me she's going to get there sooner. But what really I love is when someone is either on time or tells me they can't be on time so that I can better schedule my day. In my workplace, it works the same way too. Oh, good. This meeting's got pushed to half an hour, so I'm going to squeeze this thing into that slot.
I love that, because if you're saying that you're going to be late, then you're not late anymore. Meaning, hey, can everybody be here at 6? Yes. I get a phone call from Alex. Hey, I'm running 30 minutes late for this reason. No problem. But it's when they don't say anything and then they don't show up until 6:30.
Yes.
I started off by talking about it was a super sad lunch. What I mean by sad lunch from that is in these topics that we're talking about, this U.S. company closed down complete operations here. They closed them down because people were always late. They didn't respond to texts and they didn't read their emails. And they said they'd do something by Thursday and they wouldn't turn it in correctly on time. So it's just these little tiny tweaks that all these people would be employed here still had they made these small tweaks. So on time, we've talked a lot about physically on time. Before we conclude this, let's talk about in the home compared to a workplace. Okay. Now I know those are two opposite areas, but how, first of all, can we teach our kids, and how, second of all, can we status update when it comes to being on time with reports?
Okay. So it's just about setting the expectation,
Okay.
you know, at home and at work. If you say, we're going to be on time, we're going to leave at this time, and then you do it, you know, people fall in line. You know, we get conditioned, right? Our kids get conditioned to us either following through and saying, if we're leaving at this time and we ourselves are actually ready and standing by the door, they're like, oh crap. And they get ready, right?
True.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing in the workplace. If we say, I'm going to have this meeting at this time, and you're that person who's always there, you're on the Zoom 1 minute before in the waiting room, then they start stepping up and being like, oh, this is the expectation. So really, that's all it is. It's just leading by example to set the expectation.
I love that.
And I just wanted to add too, the change that I saw personally, it is a huge help for the other person that you're working with. It protects our jobs. It's job security to be on time. It really is. But also it's a gift to ourselves, because what I noticed is when I started being early to be on time, the franticness in my life reduced. The stress level went down. I walked into the meeting confident, secure, ready, prepared. I had a few minutes to check my notes, and I just performed better, but I felt better, right? But before, I was frantic. I was stressed. I walked into the room, you know, disheveled. You feel like your hair's everywhere, sweating. And so I decided that day I am going to stop the franticness in my life. I literally broke 2 cell phones in that time because things were just flying out of my hands. I backed into a garage door that was closed in the car because I was late and I was in a hurry and I didn't look behind me. Like, it added more stress and jobs and projects and expenses in my life. So it was a huge shift, and I feel such a peace. It's a peaceful way of living.
You know what? I would love to have a cultural tip for those people that are listening here in Latin America, is that we need to understand that there's a difference between making business with the US people and people in Latin America. And we're talking about time. So from your experience, how much time will it take you to make a business with a person in Latin America? When you are trying to establish a relationship with trust and confidence, how long do we take to make friends with other people? Probably a 2 hours meeting will take us 2 hours to make friends, and not talking about business at all. So think about the time as like, okay, I'm here, I'm prepared to talk about business, to talk about the stuff, but you are talking about being friends and friendship, and your family is like, okay, it's not that I don't care, but I'm here to make business.
Yeah. So basically, you're talking about building in time, right? Build in time if you're working with somebody in Latin America, right? That there is a friendly, loving, get to know each other, build relationship of trust. And sometimes other countries will set a 20-minute meeting. They're like, hi, great. Nice to meet you. It's okay. What time are you going to be here? You know what I mean? Go right into action items.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom.
And I like that. That's a great tip. It's a great tip to remember, to build in time to really get to know with whom you're working.
So you will avoid the stress. It's like, hey, I wanted to talk about my family. Don't be stressed about it. Because it's a way of being late, because you have a topic, you have stuff to be covered. And if you can't make it on time, you will be stressed anyway. It's like, hey, I'm here seated to talk about business, and it's 30 minutes and we're talking about your family.
Yeah.
And then you're having this stress in that meeting. So probably it's going to be hard. So being on time on every situation, being there on time, talking about the things that you need to talk on time, is like having a plan and stick to it will remove the stress out, will make you more successful, will make you more professional, will make you best in your family and all the things that you have to do. So plan for being on time every time.
Plan for being early.
I love that.
And being aware, like you say.
Never plan to be on time.
Being aware of the other person. Yeah. On time's a very small window.
Yes.
And I rarely hit it.
We should have this hashtag.
Yeah. Early is on time.
Early is on time.
Yes. I love that. Well, thanks for joining us again, Daphne. We appreciate your time here. This has been a fantastic podcast with Daphne. We hope you come back as much as you want.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate your time. We hope that you've learned some of best practices so that you have éxito in minutes. Small little changes in your life that'll have big results. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.